the road to WrestleMania, and here I am like some kind of schmuck. I haven't heard the WrestleMania theme song played once. Honestly, as soon as people start talking about the show of shows, someone has to come on and just go, whoa, whoa, WrestleMania. I mean, I'll do it. I will accept that job. Hello, my name is Simon from WhatCulture. That was not something to get annoyed about, so what is wrong with me today? I don't know, but I do know I have the finger of power, the magic hand that gives the good bits an up and the bad bits a down. So given that we just had another episode of WWE SmackDown, I thought I'd do exactly that. Let's up those downs. So we may not be going back to the WrestleMania song, but we did go back to things that WWF used to do in the past, because instead of starting SmackDown with a long promo, we jumped from wrestler to wrestler who stared into the camera and said, here's exactly what I'm going to do tonight. So it went from Paul Heyman, who was talking about Brock Lesnar, to Ronda Rousey, who was talking about Sonya Deville, to the Viking Raiders. And that was a little bit strange because they got their weird helmets on, and when you looked at it, it kind of felt like those strange hats were taken over their heads. You also had Sami Zayn and Ricochet, who of course are fighting for the Intercontinental Championship, and this was a bit like, you know, having my children put in front of me and someone saying, well, you're going to have to flush one down the toilet. Now, I don't know why we'd ever be in that scenario, but it's just how I felt. It was right into that as well, and look, I'm a geek, I'm a nerd. You do a championship change like this with someone who I'm very fond of, and I'm giving you it up. Now, the only shame is that given the fact we've now given the belt to Rick, it means Sami Zayn is already no longer the Intercontinental Champion. So he held it for what? Like 2 weeks, and it doesn't really matter because Sami is always going to be great. But I just have to ask the question, why does WWE always have him lose? And it does make sense because we are going to do Johnny Knoxville versus Sami Zayn at WrestleMania, and as we found out, nobody wanted that to be for the IC title. But also, take all of that and throw it in the air because this match was flubbing great. People also love Ricochet's shock horror, and at one point there was this bit where it was like a slingshot into a Hurricane Rana, into a powerbomb. Doesn't make any sense. It's like 2 + 2 = potato. Ricochet also hit a space-flying tiger drop, which is what I'm officially going to call my firstborn. And of course, this match ended in distraction. Because clearly Johnny Knoxville has been watching the show and completely knows how to totally upend a wrestler, because he told the audio guy, play my music now. He walked out into the arena and Sami Zayn completely forgot he was in a wrestling match. So I'd go, Johnny Knoxville, I hate you so much. When Ricochet hit him with a Hurricane Rana and then basically moved into the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, and he got the 3. He became the IC champ and everybody went crazy. This was proper warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum stuff. This was a really fun and awesome start to the show though, and fingers crossed we have something massive planned for Ricochet at WrestleMania. Don't just forget about him, although it was a nice way to set up the entire show. We then recapped the Pat McAfee interview with Vince McMahon, which you absolutely have to see if you haven't already, especially because during that interview, Vince said, hey Pat, do you want a WrestleMania match? He said yes, but we don't know who his opponent is going to be until this very second. Because basically, Austin Theory just walked out and said, yep, I'll do it. I'm friends with Vince McMahon. He has taken me under his wing, and haha, Pat McAfee, he screwed you over, and you never saw it coming. I was like, Austin, what the hell are you talking about? Have you seen the views that did? I'm pretty sure Pat McAfee is happy. Austin also got in Pat's face and just gave him a slap. And while once again, this is just man walks up to other man and goes, geese match, and the person goes, I will do it. At least you do have the Vince McMahon tie-in here. And for all those people that thought it was actually going to be Pat McAfee versus Vince McMahon, what the hell were you thinking? Just try to ignore the fact as well that Austin Theory is a Raw wrestler that just turned up to SmackDown. But this was quite fun because Pat was all like, I don't even know who that guy is, which means he ain't watching Raw. Ultimately though, I just like Pat McAfee, so the fact that he's getting this opportunity, I think is a wonderful thing. Also, I actually think they'll surprise us and have a good match. I'm giving it up. It was then Naomi versus Carmella with Sasha Banks and Zelina Vega in their respective corners. It was fine. But I would have preferred it if they had got more than 2 minutes. But honestly, as I say every single week, I think WWE has forgotten that they even have women's tag team championships. And they were like panicking, like, oh man, well, we've got to feature them on WrestleMania. Oh, just do this. There was a lot of nonsense though with Carmella's mask. And at one point, Zelina Vega just jumped up on the apron. But Sasha Banks took her, smacked her in the face, which is when Naomi hit her spit-legged moonsault. She got the 1, 2, 3. once again, I was like, okay, cool, we set it up. I mean, you'd be hard pushed to get mad at it, like you're not gonna think about it for too long after the fact either, but come on now, this is a positive show. Up. Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss were then playing poker backstage with a bunch of goons. Happy Corbin basically ragged on Madcap Moss the entire time and was like, oh man, do your Drew McIntyre impression. I hope one day he loses it and goes out on his own. It is going to be Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin at WrestleMania though. And then very conveniently, Drew McIntyre was walking out to have a match. It's almost like somebody knew. He was taking on Jinder Mahal as well, and don't forget a year or 2 years ago, they were having this big match at SummerSlam, so what the hell happened here? And even though Jinder did come out with Shanky, big old Shanks did nothing. I mean, the ending of this was basically identical to the previous match, but when he got on the apron, Drew was basically like, oh man, why you gotta make my life so tough? So he took out him, he hit Jinder with the Claymore kick, 1, 2, 3, done. He then cut a promo afterwards saying that he is going to end Baron Corbin's undefeated streak, and I was like, is undefeated streak even a thing? I didn't know that. We come back to Corbin, and honestly, it was like someone had knocked on the door and told him, you're about to die. And given that it is Drew McIntyre who walks around with a sword, that may very well happen, but once again, okay, cool, fine, up. We were then meant to get something with Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs, but as they were making their entrance, the Usos just jumped them and beat him up. I mean, what a couple of geeks. It was then pitched that they did this because Roman Reigns had decided it was his show and he wanted to make his entrance to the ring, and I did quite like that, but why did we have to do it at the expense of Nakamura and Boogs? Still, let's be perfectly honest, the head of the table is on fire right now, which is not good because the table is made out of wood, so he's probably gonna die. He plugged the MSG house show tomorrow because WWE would really like you to buy tickets and said, well, both me and Brock Lesnar have title matches. Maybe one of us is gonna lose our belt, so please come and watch it because we'd like to sell you a ticket. I mean, this is not gonna happen, and then Roman went into his usual rhetoric where he's like, I'm gonna beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and then millions and millions of dollars worth of pyro is gonna go off. And I was like, that's a very interesting thing to say, but at the moment, I have bought into Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. I think WWE has done a terrific job and it's getting it up. As they were out there already, we did finally do the Usos versus the Viking Raiders, and I'm pretty sure even Eric and Ivar were like, we ain't ever gonna win this. There is no way. They really did kick the crap out of each other though, because my word, the Usos took this horrible bump to the floor, and when Ivar gave this flying splash to Jimmy, I was like, oh man, he's dead. That looked like it killed him. They also hit the Viking Experience, but Jay broke it up at the last minute. If you were an Usos fan, you would have been going phew. The Usos also threw Eric over Barry Barricade, so at least he had an off night. But seriously, the amount of times the Vikings were just grabbing bodies and hurling them around the place, I mean, it was a little bit silly. They absolutely do need to be featured more though, and when Jay broke up the Viking Experience for a second time, it was quite obvious what was gonna happen. The Usos hit the 1D, 1, 2, 3, that is done. They're still the tag champs, and I have no idea who the hell they're going to be facing at WrestleMania. Still, really fun match. The division does need more teams. Up. I then cannot lie, and do not get me wrong, I love Big E, I love Sheamus, so when they were going to have a match, I was like, oh, hey ho, here we go. But I cannot get over the fact that Big E is no longer in the main event scene. I mean, we didn't give him a chance as WWE champion, we didn't particularly book him very strong, and then we just moved him back to where he was before, and it honestly makes me feel sad right in here. And you never want to be feeling that way, you want to feel excited when you are watching wrestling. So I'm going to leave it here, but just so I can get it out into the open, I am going to give it a down. There is no doubt in my mind that Big E wouldn't have been a huge success, but you had to back him properly. However, at least they haven't been forgotten about, and it does seem like we're going to do the New Day versus Sheamus and Ridge Holland at WrestleMania, which is quite the strange match, but hey, you got to do something. And we didn't even get this contest here either, because after the New Day came out in their ATV again, which yes, as it turns out, is tying into a brand new toy that has been released, Ridge got a chair, he smacked Kofi, and he took this chair and he started hitting the ATV. And I was like, Ridge, what the hell are you doing? So he should totally be arrested for being strange, and then Sheamus has decided, oh man, I want to drive the ATV. So they flew to the back, and after we had come back from commercial, they were just smashing it up with sledgehammers. I was like, you two are really strange folk. The real twist, of course, is that we're meant to feel upset about this because it was a present from Kofi Kingston to Big E. But this is still more story than the usual guy walking up to other guy going, oh man, I really want a match. I also don't know how I'm meant to get emotional about a vehicle being destroyed that's only been around for 7 days. As I've already said, I like these guys. You could give them anything and they'd make it work. Johnny Knoxville then accepted Sami Zayn's challenge that's officially happening on the WrestleMania card. When we were back to Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss, who were playing poker, when Drew McIntyre's sword just went swang and went flying into a dartboard. Because once again, his whole point is, I am going to murder you at some point. And if we don't pay that off at WrestleMania and someone doesn't get stabbed, well, this hasn't followed the logical story arc, and I massively regret saying those words. And then we had another short match, but again, if you expected anything different from Sonya Deville and Ronda Rousey, well, you ain't been watching WWE. Sonya reminded the referee that she was the boss in case you thought they were going to screw them, and Charlotte Flair came out to do commentary. My word, she barely did any of that. As soon as the bell rang, she jumped on the apron and was going distraction, distraction, and this allowed Deville to beat up Ronda for probably around about 8 seconds. The fans are really behind Rousey too, so you can't argue that this is working, and eventually she applied the armbar. Sonya Deville tapped out. The whole time on commentary, Charlotte had been going, oh, I'm not impressed with this armbar, I'm not impressed with this armbar. So she got in the ring, and Ronda applied an ankle lock instead. Charlotte Flair started tapping out. Now this was a little bit annoying because the whole time WWE was going, nobody's tapped out Charlotte Flair before, so somewhere Oscar just cried a tear because that did happen. But look, Ronda versus Charlotte will actually be a decent match. The build is okay, I suppose. I was certainly entertained enough. So I thought this was another solid episode as we do move to Mania, and of course as that day gets closer and closer, the shows usually get better and better, so we are in a good place, and overall, it is getting it up. Now please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of SmackDown. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com, we'll keep you up to date with the wrestling news. We'll do the same here on YouTube, so make sure you click a video, and we're on social media. Come and give us a follow. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. If you are watching SmackDown, make sure you watch AEW Rampage Ups and Downs as well, because at least that way my Saturday hasn't been wasted to the craziness of wrestling. You take care of yourself. See you soon.